No niin. Jos kaikki ottaa pikkuhiljaa paikkansa ja ei tarvitse kaikkea valoa tappaa, mutta kaiken audion voisi tappaa. Tervetuloa Saku 2014 tapahtumaan, retro- ja vintage-tietokone-tapahtumaan tänne pääkirjasto Metsoon Tampereelle. Mun nimi on Janne Sirén ja mä olen tapahtuman järjestävästä Suomen Amiga-käyttäjät ry:stä, joka juhlii 21-vuotisjuhlavuotta tänä vuonna ja palaa Tampereelle ensimmäisen kerran 10 vuoteen. Tämä on meille ihan merkittävä vuosi. Myös tämä hieno paikka eli Tampereen pääkirjasto Metso on ollut mukana järjestelyissä. Kiitos heille myös tästä mahdollisuudesta. Järjestäjistä vielä muutama kiitoksen sana. Hansu Kuittinen, tiimeineen, Anu Seilonen, Simo Koivukoski, Petteri Valli ja kaikki te, jotka olette tuoneet koneita tänne. Täällä on mahtava määrä koneita tänään paikalla, jotka kaikki on vapaaehtoisten tuomia, esittelemiä, demoamia, kannattaa tutustua. Kiitos myös Scrollilehdelle ja MBlle, jotka on tänään paikalla. Ja tietenkin Gentleaille, Boogille. Ja meillä on myös Cloanton Michael Battilana täällä Amiga Forever, C64 Forever tuotteiden takaa. Ja myös muutakin pientä erityisvierasta luvassa. Mutta tietysti meidän tärkein vieras päästään kohta puheeseen. Ennen kuin tehdään sen, niin mä muistan vielä, täyttäkää vieraskirja ja vierailijakysely oven suussa. Jossain vaiheessa kaikki vierailijakyselyyn osallistuvat saa hienon LED-lampun mukaansa. Meidän erityisvieras tänään on tietenkin ei kukaan muu kuin entinen Commodore and Amiga-johtaja Petro Tyschtschenko. Petro aloitti Commodorella vuonna 1982 logistiikkaosastolla ja vuoteen 1994 mennessä oli usean Euroopan Commodore-maan toimitusjohtaja. Ja konkurssin jälkeen Petro on jatkunut Amiga-johtajana tauotta vuoteen 2001 saakka etsien uusia investoijia ja omistajia, ja sen takia Petro on joskus tituleerattukin Amigan Bill Gatesiksi. Kukaan muu ei ollut Amigan johdossa näin kauan. Ja Petro on ollut myös oikeussaleissa tämän taustansa takia. Petro haastiin oikeuteen Commodoren konkurssin jälkeen $189 miljoonasta ja vietti 10 vuotta oikeussaleissa tämän takia ja voitti lopulta juttunsa. Et Amiga on hallinnut Petron elämää aina tonne viime vuosikymmenen puoliväliin saakka vähän väkisinkin. Mutta vaikka sen jälkeen Petron velvollisuudet Amiga-alalla on päättynyt, niin ei hän ole malttanut pysyä poissa. Hän on muun muassa tuonut Amiga 1200 tietokoneita Intiasta varastoista Eurooppaan viime vuosina ja kirjoittanut kirjan. Tänä vuonna ilmestyneen Meine Erinnerungen an Commodore und Amiga, joka on noin vapaasti käännettynä muisteluitani Commodoresta ja Amigasta. Sitä saksankielistä versiota voi ostaa täältä paikaltakin ja englanninkielinen versio on noin vuoden kuluessa tulossa. So, ladies and gentlemen, I last had the pleasure of introducing Petro in 1998 at our Saku 98 event in Heureka, Vantaa. And now here today in Tampere, Finland, Petro Tyschtschenko.
Thank you very much. Hyvää päivää. Is this good? Hyvää päivää. Yeah, okay. We said, first of all, I would like to thank you to the organization committee, the Janne, and of course Anu. It was very nice, a pleasure for me to be here, to see so many enthusiastic retro computer fans, right? It's really great. All around the world, Amiga for the future, but we have no future, unfortunately, only history. But history is also nice. Sometimes we remember, and I got a lot of emails always telling about the old times with tears in the eyes when there was young kids buying the C64 or the VIC-20 or the first Amiga. So it was a nice time, also for me. Now I'm old, but anyway still active, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation and for your interest. So Janne, you would like to ask me some questions, yeah? Yes.
So we agreed with Petro that I will give him some topics to talk about. And I think the only way we can start really is the beginning. So I know in your book there is the job advertisement you responded to back in 1982. So could you tell us about how you started at logistics in Commodore and what were those early years in the European Commodore like?
Yeah, I have to go back a little bit because I worked at the company called Adressograph Multigraph in Frankfurt also. It was an American company. I worked there 9 years before I was in the management of 3M, Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing in Düsseldorf also. And I was not quite happy here with the Adressograph Multigraph because the general managers, they're all American, they cannot talk German. This was this area, and they changed, the general manager changed, I would say maybe every year, come another one, and it was a very difficult time. After 9 years I would like to finish this job and looking for another one. I heard about the computer industry, about IBM of course, about Apple, and then of course of Commodore. And my wish was to change to Commodore. How to do this? This time there was no internet. I looked in a newspaper and then I found an advertisement from a headhunter, not disclosing Commodore, but said that they're looking after a logistic guy who made the purchasing for the German subsidiary and later maybe for Europe, and application, this and this and this. So I make my application, and I was very happy that I get a letter that said, "Dear Mr. Tyschtschenko, very nice, you have the profile that we're looking for, you can come for interview." So I was really sweating a little bit, excited like today also, and then I went there to the hotel. It was a very five-star hotel in Frankfurt, and I have a nice interview. I was very happy. He interviewed me 1 hour, barbecue, like a barbecue festival. And then I went very proud home and said to my wife, I said, this job is in my pocket, I'm 100% sure. This job is tailor-made for me. And 2 weeks later, the big disappointment came because the headhunter said, sorry, we decided for another guy. Okay, that's destiny, I thought. But I continued my job in this Adressograph Multigraph company, and we have to switch the telephone equipment into a new one. And there was a guy from Siemens, and we talked, and I said, I'm not so happy here, and I'm looking for a computer job. He said, computer job? She said, yeah, Mr. Tyschtschenko, your Commodore is very famous. I said, yeah, Commodore, forget it, Commodore, I have an application already, and they refused me. No. He said, you're a good guy, I know you. You know, the president or the general manager of the German subsidiary was a clerk, was a trainee at Siemens, and he was repairing the telephone devices, and I will talk with him, and he's now the general manager, and maybe you have a chance there. So that was a discussion with this guy, and then 2 weeks later I was on the terrace, I got a telephone call, jumped in the car and make the first interview with the general manager of Commodore, and he hired me. So that was the story when I started. This was in 1982, right? Some of you are not born so far, huh?
So what was Commodore like in the 80s? Because that was the heyday of Commodore, and I think, did you work solely on Amiga, or how much did you, for example, work with the 8-bit Commodores? Commodore 64 was very popular in Finland, for example.
Yeah, at this time we have the VIC-20. We changed this in Germany into VC-20. The C64 was not developed so far, it was developed but not for sales, 82. The C64 came then in 83. And I was responsible for purchasing software, for example, cartridges for the datasette, right, at this time, and then also books, and then also for the car policy, for the parking situation, then for maintenance, for water, for clearance, for the internal mailing system and all the things. So, and then there was a big discussion between the sales, the Commodore sales, which was located in Frankfurt, and Commodore manufacturing. We have had a plant at this time in Braunschweig, where they assembled. This was mostly assembling company, assembling plant. And there was always, because this assembling plant in Braunschweig, they took orders all around Europe, and then of course the the general manager of Braunschweig, he always preferred to send VIC-20 to other countries. And the sales in Germany, they don't like this, of course, because they have no priority. And then they said, we need a guy who controls this Braunschweig a little bit, because we have to make some sales. And then this was my job, to go to Braunschweig, to fight with the factory, and to separate the distribution for Germany from the distribution of the European, which is done by the Braunschweig factory. So this was my first job from 1982 to 1986. And then I changed to the international department from 86 to 90. I was responsible for a central warehouse in the Netherlands, container coming from China, from Hong Kong, from the Philippines to Rotterdam, and I distributed them. This computers was C64s at this time also. The Amiga comes into the European market. And then from 1960 to 2000, always 4 years, I was then responsible worldwide for the logistic.
So what was Commodore like as a working place? In your book there is a carnival party speech, and there's also a Commodore memo about alcohol use during working hours. So what was it like to work for Commodore, and how were the company outings and employee events?
At this time there was all young people, you know, developers and the maintenance and the service and so. I was a little bit older already, and then of course the people sleeping in the office because developing something or make hardware, changing the hardware or something. And this was special guys, like the Amiga always was special guys. And then of course they starting also to drink, to do. It was very funny, the whole company. There was no regulation, there was no policy, nothing. Everybody can do whatever they would like. And then of course we have to make some rules, and then there are some funny stories about this in my book. About memos where they said, okay, alcohol is not long allowed, and festivals are not long allowed, and you have to go, you have to make some legitimation also, so we got the passports for the company passports for entrance, and all this thing starts then in 1984, I would say so.
So about those Commodore years, were there any highlights that you remember from, say, C64 or Amiga, which were very popular in Finland, about their launches? Or I recall that you even visited Finland once. So tell us a bit about your memories of the C64 and Amiga during Commodore.
Yeah, the VIC-20s or the VC-20 was VC-20 was very successful, of course, and everybody likes it very much. There was enough software also available. And then come the C64. And nobody would know the C64. And we have the instruction from Mr. Gould, he was the finance and the member of the board, not to spend too much advertisement in totally. And so we cannot advertise the C64 as it is necessary to launch a new product. So we have at the moment, I remember, there was in the store, in the stock, around about 36,000 C64s. And nobody from the dealers and nobody from the customer would like it. Everybody's asking for VIC-20. And then Jack Tramiel, he was at the moment very powerful, he was the president. He came to Frankfurt, I never forget this, he stand up, the little small big guy, jumped on the desk and said, you know, gentlemen, with the sales, he said, business is like war. We have to fight and we have to win. It is terrible. I saw in the inventory 36,000 C64s. You're crazy. You should sell them, not stock them. And they make some people, they get a lot of problems with Jack. And he has not supplied any VIC-20 anymore, and then starts the sales of the C64 like he expected, but only after he gave a lot of pressure into the sales company.
So we have to ask, did you personally get in trouble with Jack Tramiel because he's a famous name?
Yeah, no, never. You cannot believe this. I was in the management and Jack invited the management in the Brückenkeller in Frankfurt. It's a very famous restaurant. There was also a small music playing with the violins there. And I sit with the wives, my wife was also there, and the wives of the other managers also. It was a nice evening, and then I sit opposite of Jack, and then Jack, you are Tyschtschenko, he said, Petro, you're Tyschtschenko, you're coming also, you're Slavian, you're coming somewhere from the Ukraine, and I was in Poland in a concentration camp, and he told me, and he said, you know, we are like brothers, he said to me, and the other people, they looked at this, and then I said, you have a song, we have a music here, you can choose a song. Then I said, okay, Kazachok. Then he said to the musician, they come with the violins, and then they played Kazachok, and said, let Petro, we dancing together. This was really excited moment in my life, to be honest, to have such a fun with Jack Tramiel.
So it wasn't all fun and games at Commodore. Commodore went bankrupt, of course, in 1994, and I know you've told me the story of where were you at that time and how it went down. Could you tell us about that and also your views on why Commodore went down?
Yeah, we got a new president, this was Mehdi. So some people, they heard a lot of bad stories about Mehdi, but I can not complain anything. He was very nice to me, and in the last 4 years, as I told you before, when I was responsible for the international logistic, then I have to travel always with Mehdi together, because the general managers, if they fail the forecast, they have to do a forecast. Let's say UK said, well, we'll sell 100,000 Amigas A500 or A1200, and then they have not performed their forecast. Then they always said, yeah, you know, we cannot perform the forecast because the fault is at Petro, the logistic is not working, we get no products, nothing, how we can make sales? So therefore I was always beside Mehdi and have, of course, to respond and tell them what happens. Mostly it was so, it was not my fault, it was a wrong planning, they make wrong figures. You know, the A1200, for example, or the A600 or A500, the keyboard is integrated. The power supply and the manuals are linked to the country. So then the UK, for example, they forecasted 100,000 and they sold 200,000. So how to manage this, right? Or French forecasted 50,000 and only sell 20,000. So then we have a surplus of keyboards of the version, of the country version, the power supplies from the country and the keyboard from the country. So this was very difficult. Not like the PC, they put the keyboard into the box, and if this cannot sell, then they switch the keyboard and it's a country version. So this was difficult at the Amiga. And we spent a lot of money also for reworking. This was part of my job also. When the vessel came and the forecast was not fit and we have too much English version or too much German version, then I hired some students, and there was a rolling course, and then day and night they changed the keyboards. We bought a printing machine and keycaps, blank keypads, caps to change the keyboard versions and changing the manual. This cost, of course, a lot of money, but this was mostly the fault of the subsidiaries who have done not a proper planning, right?
So when you heard the news about the bankruptcy, how did that happen?
Yeah, so Mehdi was always going from subsidiary to subsidiary. Mostly we were in UK, in Maidenhead, or we was in Frankfurt, and then all the general manager of Europe, 11 countries, so 11 general manager came, and they have to report. And one time we was in Milano, I remember. We have a meeting there with also all the general managers, and then we have a break. And there's also a funny story. I went to make a pee there in the toilet, and Mehdi standing beside me, and then he looked at me and said, "Hey, Petro, you have to go next Sunday to the church." I said, "Mehdi, what do you mean with this?" I said, "Yeah." He said, we will go bankruptcy, I think. If not something happened and you pray to God and He will make us successful. But I think we have no chance. So this was a funny story when I heard first time that Commodore went into bankruptcy.
So out of the time at Commodore, what was your favorite product during the Commodore years? Favorite computer or?
Yeah, I love all the computers, of course, but not the A600, for example, right? This was also a funny story. There was the English subsidiary. They said we need a model, and they designed the A600, and then forecasted the A600, and we bought this A600. We produced the A600, and it was supplied, and then England cannot sell this, right? They only would like to have the 500, right? Oh. And then Mehdi go to the German subsidiary and said, hey guys, you have to sell the 600. And then they make a trick. They said, okay, because 500 and 600, so most of the people there thought 600 is more value than the 500. So they make a change. They said, okay, you give back your 500, we give you a 600. And this was a big disaster. Maybe some of you know that the 600 was not such a brilliant machine.
We're not going to get you away with that easy. You have to choose one. Which is your favorite computer?
My favorite computer?
During Commodore.
During Commodore. Yeah, I would say the A1000 was very nice. I was very happy. We have had a big show in New York when we introduced the A1000 with the famous guy. What was his name? Warhol. Yeah, Andy Warhol. I heard from Michael that he's still active, right? I think he still spent the money what he earned at this time when we introduced the A1000. And then of course also in the old opera in Frankfurt, we introduced the A1000, and I think this was a great machine. Just in this time where also Apple started to grow, and Apple was always our, I would say not enemy, but our big competition. Right? Sometimes we winning against Apple, sometimes we have lost against Apple. But this is the story. So the A1000, I think, was my most favorite. And the remembrance, nobody of us knows what is multimedia at this time, right? It was the first multimedia machine. And then the bowling ball, this animation live, was great things.
So, after Commodore, you became sort of a trustee of the trustee. You became the trusted guy for the bankruptcy trustee of Commodore and subsequently of Escom. So tell us what happened after Commodore and how did you end up at Escom and Amiga Technologies there?
Yeah, the story starts when Commodore went into bankruptcy. Then first the US company went into bankruptcy, and all the subsidiaries, they were not independent of the US company, but they have money and there was a own registered company. So that means when the mother company in the US went into bankruptcy, then other companies can still alive if they have some money and if they have some inventory, if they have not too much debts. So then it starts one after the other went into bankruptcy. The UK subsidiary and the German subsidiary was very rich at this time, but they continue sales, even if the mother company was already in bankruptcy. But then French went into bankruptcy. Then all the general managers, of course, of those weak subsidiaries, they left the company. And then Mehdi called me always and said, Petro, I rely on you, I need you, I need you, I need you. Can you go to Paris and run the company and go to the court and finalize the bankruptcy? Go to the bankruptcy court and also lead the people. It was very difficult also for me this time to tell the people that the company's bankruptcy, they could not believe this, that they lost the job. So I have to done all these dirty works in Paris, then also in the Netherlands, then in Hong Kong, then in Spain and in Portugal. Then of course when I come into the court, then they said, you're the new general manager, and then I got a court case already because they said, okay, you have a personal liability for the bankruptcy, and they sued me. So I got a big court case in Paris where they sued me for 20 million US dollar, and another one in the Netherlands which was 189 million. And we fight it. It was not only me who was sued, but also Mehdi Ali, for example, and the other general manager, and also in Hong Kong the people at the factory. We were a total of 12 people who has to fight against the legal procedure. And God thanks, Mehdi has done for all the general manager and directors a very good insurance. So we fight it 14 years. We spent 11 million US dollar only for the court case, for the lawyers and all the things. And last but not least, we have not failed, so we were the survivor, and the court closed down and said, okay, it was not the fault of the management that Commodore and Amiga went into bankruptcy.
So these names, you mentioned Mehdi Ali quite a bit, and I know you were colleagues with him. These are quite notorious names in the Amiga communities. Mehdi Ali, Irving Gould, many others. Do you think history has treated them fairly, or would you disagree?
Yeah, you know, there was always a competition between people like Dave Haney or Andy Finkel or the other developers, because Mehdi was in a tailor-made suit with a tie and a five-star hotel always, and this world has not fitted with the engineers. And so they don't understand the world of Mehdi, and Mehdi has not understood the world of the developers and the engineers. And therefore some people who does not know why he has refused some project, like the AAA, for example, or other things which they suggested. They, of course, they don't like Mehdi Ali so much, and they make some story about him, which is, I would say, from my perspective, not correct. So, but as I told you, there was a big discrepancy in the culture of these people.
So after Commodore and after the bankruptcy, of course, the lawsuits continued for many years, but you also went to Escom and then to Gateway. So if you could tell a bit about those years under Escom and under Gateway.
Yes, so I told you before, one after the other of the companies went into bankruptcy, and when every country was in bankruptcy, then of course the bankruptcy, the liquidator came to me as well, write me a friendly letter and said, Petro, that's it, bye-bye, take care. We don't need you anymore, Commodore's bankruptcy. So then I thought maybe I can find some investor, because my heart belongs to Amiga and Commodore with the good products and with a good time, and I also not so interested, a little bit selfish, because I don't like to lose my job also. And then I found, and talking with people, and then I found the Escom, and the Escom CEO at this time was Manfred Schmidt. He knows me from the Commodore time, when I saved his life for his company one time, because C64s, he ordered the C64s, I think 5,000 units or something, and nobody can ship because I was on the allocation, and I was there powerful, and I sent him some C64 so he can survive for the Christmas business. And therefore he remembered Petro, nice guy, and he called me and said, Petro, you're the only one, I need Commodore. I would like that you apply the intellectual property for Commodore. I would like to use the name Commodore for the PCs, because Manfred Schmidt was with Escom linked to the PC line, and said, in Amiga you can run. Okay, then I started. I was very happy that I can continue with Escom, and I built up, and we was flying, and I have a due diligence. I made a half-year due diligence in New York together with a lawyer company, and then after this we had the court case, and we went to the court, and the judge, they said, okay, fine, how much you will bid? And Manfred Schmidt said 10 million. And the judge said, okay, 10 million is done. And this time, there were some people from Dell. They stand up and said, Judge, don't give it for 10 million, we pay you 19 million. The judge was a little bit confused, and then he said, yeah, but you need to do a due diligence again. Said, yeah, the Dell people said, yes, we need due diligence, we need another month, and so you should wait. And then the judge said, no, Escom has done 6 months of due diligence, everything is perfect, 10 million, that's the last word. And so we got the deal, right? And for 10 million, Escom got the trademark for Commodore on the PCs, and I was a president then in Heppenheim and built up Amiga again, right?
And during this time you re-commerced Amiga production. And could you tell a bit about how the Amiga 1200 started to be remade and the A4000T started to be remade?
Yeah, the A1200 was the last production was in the Philippines, and of course company was bankruptcy, and there were some debts to the banks there in the Philippines, in Manila, and there was 3 banks involved. Commodore, when they went bankruptcy, they owned the banks around about 1.5 million, and I was then going there to Manila with a lawyer, who's Ed Goff, and we negotiated with the banks, and then we find a solution for 500 because they cannot sell anything. It was only parts. A lot of parts was in the warehouses, yeah, and boards, mostly A1200s and A4000. And then we make a negotiation with the banks, and we get the deal. We get all the parts, all the things what was in the warehouse for $500,000. I make the deals then, and then I have to find a factory because I cannot hire people. It's impossible. So we need a third party. And I found then in France the company called Solitron was a third party company, and they was very good. We make an agreement that they took over all the inventory of they have the bill of material, of course, and they take over the inventory from the Philippines, and whatever is missing in the bill of material for the A1200, they bought, they sourced. And I'm making an agreement then, and I could buy them from Solitron. I saw the magic pet is there, right? For $312, I remember. And I bought them back and sold them then into the market. Yeah, this was the story, ramp up the A1200. But it was very successful at the Escom time. We generated a lot of money, and we have around about 50 people who worked. And we designed at this time also the Walker. There was last Sunday, I don't know if you have heard this or have seen this in the Facebook or in YouTube. The Walker is developed in 1996 and should replace the A1200 with a 68030 processor and based on the A4000. This Walker was last Sunday after 18 years working again, right? It was 18 years in my cellar. I took it to this fair, and then there was a really genius. Amiga people, all genius, I said, always. And he repaired and fixed, and then the A1200 was working again after 18 years, right?
And I understand that there were 2 Walker prototypes built. And as for those who don't know it, it's the one that looks like a vacuum cleaner. So it's very cool looking. I understand you, under Escom, you built 180,000 Amiga 1200s, something like that? And how about the A4000T? That was a different story.
Yeah, I have to think about this, which kind of product I would like to bring back. This was my decision, and I decided for the European market the A1200, and because we have the video toaster in the US, maybe some people remember this, and George Lucas also take the Amiga for his Star Wars, right? And so I said, okay, fine, will be a good thing. I have had QuickPack, right, who was very interested to build the A4000 in the US, and so I decided, okay, A1200 should be built at Solitron in Bordeaux, and the A4000 for the United States.
So after Escom went bankrupt, Amiga was bought by Gateway. So what was the story with that?
Bad tongues, they said, when Petro is in a company, they all went bankruptcy. But this is not true, I think so. After 2 years, Escom went into bankruptcy, but not because of Amiga. I told you, Amiga was at this time very successful, but the PC was still the bad situation. Mr. Schmidt, I was in this meeting when he has a meeting with Intel, and he bought at this time P50 processors from Intel, and his competition, Vobis was his competition, they bought Pentium 75. And Schmidt's idea was he can blow out the computer. He was building a month around about 20,000 computers, and filled in with the P50, he can make it a good price and sell it and beat Vobis. And Vobis' philosophy was at this time, no, we have 75, P75, and we have a higher price, but we have latest technology. And you know, the PC market, they decided for the latest technology, and Schmidt with his P50 could not get rid of the things. Only Vobis make a big business, even if it was more expensive. And so Escom has around about 300 million Deutschmarks at this time debts with a commerce bank, and has to go into bankruptcy.
So did you bring along the Gateway guys? Was it your doing, or how much?
So I was next day I have around, as I told you, in Heppenheim there was 50 people working for me, and my warehouse people in Braunschweig, and Escom went into bankruptcy. Next day I was alone in the office, right? Nobody would like to work, no salary, no money, no honey. You know this was this. Only the warehouse people in Braunschweig, they stayed. And now I was in the same stage. My wife said, "You're crazy, you're bankruptcy, you get no salary, you got nothing, only problems, lawsuits this, lawsuit there, and you should go out of these things." You know, I said, "No, I never give up, you know, and no risk, no fun." So I looked again to find an investor. Then I called Apple, I called Motorola, and some other companies, and nobody are interested in Amiga. There come some Russian people also, we make some, then Bill Buck come, and then Viscop came, and a lot of people. No money, but blah, 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 eyewash, nothing happens. And suddenly there came two American guys, they visiting me there in Heppenheim, and they said, "Oh, maybe we have an investor, we cannot disclose this. Wait a while, you'll get some emails or some messages, we come back to you." Okay, then I got a call from the legal department of Gateway. There was a lawyer, a lady. She said, "Oh, you know, we're coming, 5 people coming, and next day you pick us up from the airport, and then we should look into the Amiga, what you have there." So the 5 people come, they stay overnight in the Sheraton Hotel on the airport. I took care about them. Then I showed him the treasury, the intellectual property, the OS, the operating system, and all the things, and filled 2 days with them. They was very interested in cross-license agreements, which was existing at this time between Commodore and Microsoft even. And they said, "Okay, special this license, we would like you have this available." And I have really, with a patent lawyer, a good organization, organized file. I showed them everything. They said, "Okay, so how much you would like to will?" I have not talked with a liquidator at this time. He was out. I have done all these answers and questions in the meeting. Then I said, I said 14 million, I need 14 million. He said, "No problem, 14 million. Then I called Hembach. Hembach came and said, "Oh, 14 million, okay, they make the deal." And now all the intellectual property, and me of course, they said, "Okay, you should continue the company, because my dealer, that was okay, they still can continue." And so Amiga come back under the umbrella of Gateway. And first Gateway, they don't understand, it was a PC company, is a PC company, they don't understand Amiga, they don't understand this, and let me do. And then suddenly come, the first was Jeff Schindler. He come and said, okay, Petro, what you doing? And so, investigating a little bit. Then come Jim Collins. And I need, of course, new products, because A1200 was an old thing, old machine. The only market was India. India was buying the A1200 because they have video editing. They're using the A1200 for video editing. This was a good market in India, so I can still sell A1200s to India and can keep the company alive, right? So then Jim Collins come, and he was a visionary. He was a very nice guy, and he has good ideas. There were some meetings in London. We went there to San Francisco, where the Apple was designed in the same designer company, and we let them design the MCC. I don't know if you know this prototype. And then suddenly, after 5 years, it took 5 years in totally, and still have inventory on A1200. And then Jim Collins was resigned his job, and then a guy come, Schmidt was his name. He called me and said, Petro, we're not interested anymore in Amiga. I was very disappointed, okay? Same situation. First Commodore, then Escom, now Gateway. My goodness, same disaster. Then he said, you have some investor. Then I'm thinking, I said, okay, I would like to buy this. Then they asked me how much you will pay. I said, okay, I will pay $1. Then they're discussing this in the legal department, said, okay, because the PC thinkings are different than Amiga. The PC is, of course, technology. The Pentium changed, the hardware changed, the hard disk drive changed, and so on. But the Amiga was still the same, right? And very good machine. So they said, okay, we have to, their opinion was, they had to get rid of all the inventory and to put it into the garbage, and this cost a hell of money to get rid of 100,000 A1200s electronic garbage, right? So they thought so. Then they said, okay, better to get it for $1 than to pay $1 million for getting rid of the shit. So, but then come Bill McEwen 3 months later, and Gateway called me again. The contract was nearly finished for signing. And the Gateway said, Petro, we have another investor, he paid $3 million. I was out. Okay, destiny, right? But I not gave up. I worked in a half year or 1 year with Bill McEwen together, but then I have no fun anymore. And I said, okay, 2001, I make them my own company, and I'm not so successful, but I don't get like to get a millionaire. I never was a millionaire compared with other people, but happiness was also very important. Money wasn't everything for me.
2 anecdotes on these comments. Obviously, we in Finland remember very well the Gateway ending the Amiga on their part, because it happened, I think, 1 day before our Saku 99 event, and Petro, who was invited, had to cancel. So this is sort of the comeback today. So thank you for being here. I have to share a personal anecdote also from this summer. When we were planning this event, I had the pleasure of meeting Petro in his hometown in Frankfurt, and he took me eating to this restaurant where Commodore used to, I guess, not drink any alcohol. And we had a very nice dinner. Petro paid for it, so again, thank you, Petro. But he also told me that, he mentioned earlier that his wife already told him 15 years ago to quit this business because it's wasting his time and money. And he told me that the situation hasn't changed a bit, because now he has put all his money into his book. And so his wife is again complaining that, Petro, what are you doing? You need to get rid of this Amiga thing. And instead he's here. So I guess, Petro, you're never quitting this thing. So what happened? You retired in 2001, but then you went into your own business. But can you tell a bit about those Amiga-related things that you have done since, importing those A1200s and then making the book, of course?
Yeah, so 2001 I get out of the business, but before I would like to mention my friend Mike, he's also here from Italy. Before I quit, before I left Amiga, I have done a license contract with Michael, who is the boss of Cluanto. I think you know everybody, his work, Amiga Forever. I remember, Mike, you asked me if this is a good name. Do you remember? You said, I have a name, Amiga Forever. What do you think about it?
We had a list, and the consensus, and Petro pushed a lot for it, was Amiga Forever was a good name.
Yeah.
So we contacted like a user group in France or a publication here and there. They had a similar name or the same name. Was it okay for them? They said yes. So we went ahead with this number, with his name, and everything went fine. Thanks to Petro in 1997, we presented at the Amiga event in Köln.
Yes. Right, I remember.
Yeah.
Was a nice. You're a nice guy.
But it was difficult for you, a nice guy, because it was difficult for you to push it also with Gateway. I remember not everybody was convinced to license emulation. Would it be a good thing? Would it kill the Amiga? You know. And then it was our fault, and we received bomb threats, as you wrote in the book as well. So it was a bit of tension, but I'm happy that it worked out. And this allowed to build on that license, and later slowly acquire some things too. And we hope that we can keep it alive for many more years to come. In the meantime, could you please sign my copy? Thank you. Okay. Okay.
And obviously Petro is here to sign whatever you like, so...
No.
No, not checks, but you know, many things I'm sure he's been known to sign. So his table is over there from me on the left, on the right from you, and so you can please go talk to him also after the speech. So Michael, about licensing, you're still active with your Amiga Forever product and your C64 product. Do you have any other products you're planning or wanting to discuss?
Well, this is a small niche. It's wonderful in a perfectly organized event like this to see so many people, but still active users, whether they are real Amiga users or just an interest in emulation, there are not so many. So every time we do something related to emulation, even with the support of open source contributors and general supporters, it's always a debate. We're taking away precious hours from some business solution and investing it in emulation. So we have some modular components in the recent versions of the players which are shared, and indeed they would allow us to make cross-platform, cross-emulation engine products, like it could be DOS Forever, Spectrum Forever, ST Forever with appropriate licenses, of course, and maybe there will be something like this. Okay. The other thing is that we are not just involved in emulation. Thanks to what started in 1997, we also inherited some of the trademarks. So just to give you, copyrights. I must clarify this as well as what we said about Andy Warhol, because I met him in the restroom and he said, please tell the people here that I'm not here anymore working. He left us 1 or 2 years after the Amiga launch in New York. So he's doing other things now. But, so basically the intellectual property that was so precious to Gateway and Escom consisted of 3 items: patents, trademarks, and copyrights. The patents were so precious that even Gateway retained them and didn't pass them on to the next owners. They just licensed them, but in the meantime patents have expired, so they're not an issue anymore. When we first published Amiga Forever, we also had to license the patents. So we are left with copyrights, which means manuals, videos, the ROMs, the floppy disk operating systems, things like that, and the trademarks. Trademarks, you mentioned Commodore was very interesting. It's also mentioned in your book. I don't want to spoil the story, but it's really fascinating, some things that happen, notices being served in strange ways and so on. Commodore went to Tulip in the Netherlands already in the Escom times. But Amiga and all the copyrights, including 8-bit and Amiga copyrights, they were handed over to Gateway and then to Amiga Inc. and then later to us for the classic systems. So in a way, we would also like to preserve the culture as a whole, not just to supply an emulation box or something like that. It would be nice to see that, for example, here we have many children, you know, to have the C64 or the Amiga as a nice self-contained, easy to learn system to develop software also, to learn how a real machine works with all the subsystems, the graphics and sound and low level and operating system. So maybe that is also a thing we could do. And of course it would be nice to introduce new generations. In a way, it is cool, retro is cool even to people who have never seen an Amiga because it was before the 80s you mentioned before, they were born later. We also have parents and grandparents who are introducing the games of their youth to new generations, and it was very nice to see them playing. I asked which was your favorite game, and he said this one, Worms, and so on. And maybe we can, with the community's help, now with the community nearby, I have to mention Tony, who did a superb work. Tony Will, and he recently started working on PowerPC emulation as well. So again, we're killing Amiga for the second time, maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's a new life, because it's already faster than the classic PowerPC board. So whatever happens, there's a plan B, and in one way, even for real hardcore Amiga fans, we have this plan B for long-term support. We design file formats for preservations, we work with museum, we just finished a project with Barbican in London, also related to some Andy Warhol works. We have some also our own copies of some floppy disk work, which was recovered years ago. And so it's always fascinating how digital arts, gaming, culture, demo scene, and many things connect thanks to Commodore and Amiga. It's really, it's part of our heritage. And I'm really excited now speaking about this, thinking about this. But the 80s and the 90s are so intertwined with this that they speak of each other, they tell a story, and I think it's very important to preserve this. We have tens of thousands of games and other titles related to Commodore and Amiga. So that's closing the circle of what you said. We are proud to be deeply a part of Commodore and Amiga because I myself was born out of this. My retina still has the scan lines probably, but yes, if we can apply this to other platforms, it would be helpful because our resources are limited, so if we can reuse some of the work and experience, it would be more efficient.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. So Google Amiga Forever and Client, so you can obviously order the digital box product of Amiga Forever and C64. So to Petro, to close on, sort of, what have you done related to Amiga since you so-called retired from the official position?
I don't know, I have to ask the people what I've done. How do you mean this question?
You have made the 1200 deliveries from India and you have made the book.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah, you know, in my age, so my wife said, don't tell anybody your age. And with this?
Don't worry.
Okay. But I'm 71 already, and Amiga kept my life active. Even in 2001, when I decided not to do anything anymore, then my friend from India, the former distributor, he called me and said, Petro, I have some 1200s in stock, which you sold to me for $35 17 years ago. You would like to buy them back? I said, what is the price? And he said, no, yeah, €100 I need to get. I said, oh, such a small margin. Yeah, the storage was so expensive. So then I said, I'm not related anymore to Amiga, I have no contacts, nothing. But I will try to put this in the Facebook, and in the Facebook, the community is very active on Amiga, right? I'm surprised, and then I said I have some Amigas for selling, and then they ordering, and I sold them for €150. So from the beginning I got 60 units from India. Was nice, I make some money also. Some people, they said, the Petro is now selling Amigas and make his pension better and get rich and all the things. But there was not so much money earned, but I make some money. And then I said, okay, this is running good, I can take another one. I said I would like to have 100 more. Then he sent me 300. He would like to get rid of this, right? and but the quality was not so good. The package was not in the best condition after 17 years storage in Indian warehouses, and then there was a lot of software was missing, and mouse was missing, and the power supply was broken, and so I have to rework, I have to check everything, and then I got into losses again because I have to go to the warehouse. I hired some people, they're checking this and so on. But the story is now over. I sold all the things. Even now I get still email. I checked my email today, this morning, and there were 5 people who said, "Oh, Petro, I need a 1200 brand new sealed. You sold it. I heard this." I said, no anymore. Everything is gone. You are too late. This was the story of the A1200. So I came back in this business, or not business. I told you, but I was feeling my heart was bumping again. You know, Amiga is back, and then like here. They invited me, said, "Come to Saku, 1998, I was the last time here, I see some friends." And this motivated me, of course. So I'm now traveling like a clown from club to club and hold my speech and telling the stories and make the people a little bit happy and thinking about the history, right? So, and there was one guy which I met also 15 years ago. His name is Petro Tyschtschenko. He is an Amiga enthusiast. And he called me since 15 years, always said, "Petro, you should write a book, you should write a book, you should write a book." I said, "No, I have this one, I have this project and so on, no time." Then sometimes it's ring on my door and he stands with a microphone and said, "Look, you dictate, I write everything, you'll read this in correction and then we write a book." It takes two and a half years. We both together, and then in June, on 4th of June, the book was finished, of course, in my mother language, in German. A lot of people, they complained, they said we need the English version. But I invested a lot of money in this edition, because to be honest, I thought I will sell more. I sold so far around about 300 books or 350 books. But I need to break even, I need minimum 700, 800 books. Then I can start the English version to make you happy. So if you would like to support me, there are nice pictures inside, even you cannot read. Some Finnish people said, "Oh, we will study German, so we will read this book, don't worry." You can buy this and support me a little bit to cover my break even, to start in the English version as soon as possible, right?
Thank you very much, Petro. Before we go to questions, if there are any from the audience, we have to discuss one very important topic, and that is the boing ball underpants. So how did you go into underwear business? Please tell us the story.
This story is not in my book. I was always, we need a new product. The A1200, super machine, but all technology, right? And it was a niche market at this time. So I forced Gateway, I said, "Look, you should find a new machine, you should make some new machine." And Jim Collins was my hope, to be honest. He was a brilliant guy. And he has some meetings in England also. He introduced another operating system based on the Amiga and the MCC machine and conversion computer. Convergence computer was his slogan, I remember. But to keep the community alive, I don't like that the community give up the Amiga, so I have to think, I strategize what I can do. Okay, then I print stickers, Amiga. Then I make pencils, Amiga. Then I sold them. Then I make a watch with my signature on, and I sold them with a certificate. Only to keep the community happy, also on the fairs, old museum, the museum was showed, and then we sell this product. And I was in India one time in a restaurant, in a bar, it was evening bar, drinking some beer there, and beside me was a German guy. And I said, "Okay, so what are you doing?" He said, "Yeah, I'm an advertisement." I said, "What are you doing?" "Yeah, I have stockings, I have t-shirts, I have underpants, I have all these things, whatever you would like, pencils, and you can put the logo on, and we make a good deal." I said, "Okay, fine." Then he visited me in my office in London, and I make a deal, and then I bought stockings with a bowling ball and underpants, of course, and all the things, and was very successful in sales and keep the Amiga community alive. Coca-Cola was the Amiga Cola I developed also with a Swiss company, and all the things. Some people, of course, they said, Petro is crazy, we need products, and he's selling all this advertising shit. But everybody's waiting, so they have an expectation that something comes. And I was not bullshitting at this time, I really was. I said always to Gateway, look, I keep the community alive, you should make a new machine, we will be very successful. But Gateway had another discussion with Bill Gates, I think. This I heard from a third party, that Bill Gates called Ted Wade. Ted Wade was at this time the president of Gateway, and said, hey, nothing with Amiga, I don't like to hear this word Amiga. Keep out of this, right? Otherwise I will increase your license for Microsoft products. And then therefore I think this is the reason why Jim Collis also already was resigned or quit the job, the story, and Ted Wade has nothing done anymore with Amiga, but he was punished because Gateway anyway is not long existing, I think. That is true. I was working for them, they also went bankruptcy.
We remember all this Petro's Boing Boing merchandise from Saku 99, of course, where he sent us very generous 3 large boxes, pallets of this stuff, and it was handed out. I'm fairly sure someone here is wearing Boing boxers right about now. Anyone admit it?
Come on, show them.
Anyone have Boing Boing socks?
Now I have for my own company the cap, right, which I sponsored here for competition, right? Okay.
Power Services, Petro's company, has been doing a lot of import business and that kind of technical business since. So now, if anyone has any questions, first, thank you, Petro. And if, yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kindness, for the invitation, for everything. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
So, if anyone has any questions, we have this one microphone here, so if somebody wants to come in front and ask about the history of Commodore, Amiga, Petro. Anyone brave enough?
Don't be shy, ask.
I'm sure Michael can ask something.
Oh, there is someone else.
Sorry about my bad English, but
Your English is better than my Finnish, you know.
danke. But I want to know, do you know anything, or do you have any information about the AA chip, the mysterious chip?
Yeah, I think this was a money problem. I know the story. The engineers, they hate Mehdi for this, but at this time there was no money there. And no money, no honey, you know. We cannot develop anything more. We have to stop this. So therefore, this project was put on hold, and then the company went bankruptcy. That is the story of the AAA, right? I think would be a good future machine, right? But destiny, what should I tell you? Is your question answered so far? Yeah. You know, because I wasn't not so close to the developer in Philadelphia. There was sitting in Westchester in Philadelphia. I was many times there, of course, but we was discussing logistics, manufacturing, and purchasing, and there was other people who were responsible for the developing. Of course, Mehdi Ali at this time was a guy who can decide this, and sometimes he also have done some mistakes. Nobody's perfect. I always done a lot of mistakes in my life, but these are human things. And Mehdi hired sometimes maybe the wrong people. I often have a discussion with him and said, Mehdi, what a kind of guy you hired here. Keep out, you're a politician, he said. And then 3 months later he said, you're right, I fired him already. This cost us a lot of money for the company. So this was also something which happens in big company. Well, it was not so big, but it was 5,000 people at this time, right, worldwide.
So did you personally see the AAA, the AAA machine, the next generation machine a demo or something like that. No. So any more questions?
So I like to ask about Commodore C65 because it was like machine between Commodore 64 and before Amiga came. And so what happened? When did you pull the plug of this machine?
I think it's come out 1984. There was a few 65 developed, which are still in the community existing, and then they cut this. I don't know, to be honest, what kind of reason was to get rid of this C64. Was a good machine, I think. A few was built special. I think we have had some in Braunschweig also, and at the moment they are selling the C64 for a fortune. I heard 10,000 euros something they asking for C64. But the whole story, to be honest, I cannot answer in detail why this was and when this was. It was a pop up and go down.
Questions?
How do you like the current situation of having 3 groups developing new Amiga OS-like operating systems?
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not so happy to see this. I'm not so involved now in these Amigas. Like I know the history very well, but when I could do a decision, I would like to give the operating system anyway free for the crowds, like the Linux, for example, or something everybody can make. We have very brilliant developers, very brilliant people. I saw this last weekend when they ramped up my Walker. Incredible how these people understand the technology, how good they understand hardware and software. And I think we have a lot of intelligent people and brilliant people who could, based on the Amiga operating system, if this is free for everybody, a lot of good things. And this could be a future. Like Linux also still surviving, right? It's free, and they can do a lot of things with this. This would be my decision. And all this 3.9 and 4.1 and whatever it is, and mixed with this and mixed with that. I don't know, Michael, what you are thinking about this, but I'm not so satisfied, to be honest.
I was in talks last year with somebody who has a different business model and for whom it could make sense. I mean, we mentioned Linux. Linux provides support services, and they have large companies, each having an interest maybe in different projects, whether that's Apache or something else they support. So if we push this along, this preservation avenue, it's more difficult. At the same time, there's different options. One is when we have a partner who has a business model where they can get good karma just by making it all free and having something around it. And I'm trying to push this in a way. I would not be able to do this alone. And the other is now, thanks to these copyright things being increasingly sorted out, not completely yet for the later operating system versions, but I'm saying increasingly and slowly, much more slowly than I would wish for. If I think that Saku 2001, when I was last here, and you ask me, what did you do in between? It's a very difficult question. But this is what we did. We were able to clean up a bit of the mess, move forward with preservation. And yes, I do think that once you get all the intellectual property cleared up, this becomes more possible. It was possible in your days. It may become possible again in the future. So who knows? As long as we are here.
We need Zuckerberg, right? To invest 500 million into our plans.
Yeah.
Right.
So perhaps one more question. Last question, anyone? Yeah, and of course, Petro and Michael both will be here at the far table during the event. So there's one more question.
I'd like to ask about Mr. Jack Tramiel because because he moved to the Atari from Commodore. So what happened? Because there was like competition between these companies, and suddenly the boss of the company moves to the other company. So that's pretty interesting also.
Okay, Mr. Gould, I have to start. Mr. Jack Tramiel was his idea. He founded Commodore, and he was at this time repairing typewriting machines. And he has not so much money, but he was a visionary. And then he found Mr. Gould. Mr. Gould, a Canadian finance guy, he invested in Commodore. And we grow, as you know, with the VIC-20, with the C64. Jack Tramiel was a very tough guy, and he ran the company, I would say, very well. A little bit autographic or dictating, but successful. And then there was a dispute between Mr. Gould and Jack Tramiel. And they was on fight, and then Jack Tramiel was very emotional also from time to time, and then he said, okay, look, 5 fingers, you can choose one, right? Bye-bye, I'm going. And then he bought from, what are the company? They have games. You see, I'm old already.
Atari?
No. From where the games, the tennis, you know, what it is in the US, very famous company. He bought this, Jack Tramiel bought this, and founded an Atari. There was a game with a tennis, you know, ping pong. Yeah, this belongs to one company in the US, very famous company. I don't know the name, to be honest. I'm sorry. So Jack bought this company, and then he went to Atari. He started Atari, and then there was another fight between Commodore and Atari because there was Amiga in the Silicon Valley. Jay Miner was there, and Jay Miner was looking after. He was a genius, right, with operating system and with his group, and he was looking after finance guy. And then Jack Tramiel also would jump with his Atari to Amiga, and Commodore also, and then there was another fight, and the winner was then Commodore. They bought then the complete rights from Jay Miner and started then with Amiga, right? And of course, Jack Tramiel was disappointed, and he said, "Okay, I will kill Commodore." He said one time, but anyway, very emotional, and then. We fight it a little bit, but Atari was very nice in the music, and Amiga was very nice in the video, so it was I think, a fair competition at this time. Unfortunately, both companies went into bankruptcy, right? Together with Sinclair and with other companies as well. Okay.
I think this was an excellent closing question. Thank you for that, because we have been expanding here at the Finnish Amiga Users Group in the last few years to other era-specific computers, competitors of Amiga and other family members. Last year at Saku 2013 we had plenty of Commodore 8-bits also in attendance, and this year we have expanded to all of the computers from that era, so there are plenty of Ataris in upfront too, and I think this is a good direction for us retro vintage computing people to be inclusive. You know, the computer wars are over. So the event shall continue until 4 o'clock, and we'll have a lot of gaming competitions and other interesting things still coming ahead. But at this point I would like to thank Petro, and we can throw one more applaud